Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining. My name is Utukuri, my good friend Nick over there.
Hello.
And you're here today for an interactive workshop, Crush Your Next Remote Presentation. So we are going to put some people on the hot seat. We're going to actually show you the simple things that you can all do to make your interactive remote presentations way more engaging. Introducing myself, my name is Utukuri. I'm the founder and CEO, part of a technology company based out of Toronto, Canada. So we are coming at you live from Mississauga today, and you are going to go ahead and see a whole bunch of technology that you can easily implement. But first up, I want to kick you over to Nick.
All right. Watch this transition from one camera to another. Hello, everybody. And it's great to see so many of you here. We know how busy everybody is, so thank you for being here. And I also want to say a special thank you to Av for hosting here at Vizetto. And we are going to walk through a whole bunch of different content. Where is it over here? Thank you. We're going to walk through a bunch of different content using Reactiv SUITE today. But we're going to put a few people specifically on the hot seat. Before we do that, I'm also going to introduce myself. I'm the CEO and founder of Kindler and Company. What do? We help innovators become better communicators. And we do that through a whole range of things. And we're going to start just walking through some of the core principles today. And then we're going to put a few lucky folks onto the hot seat. Now, if you don't get onto the hot seat, I think we should say this right off the top. Don't worry. There's a good chance we will do this again, because we think we got a lot of people asking for this coaching opportunity. So let's start by talking about what it is that we're going to be doing. Both Av and I have some giveaways, right? Including trial of Reactiv SUITE, as well. If you're interested in getting any of the information that we're covering here today, number one, I'm the author of the book Impact. You can go to kindlerandcompany.com/reactive, and all uppercase on the reactive side of things, and no E, because that's how he spells reactive. And you can get a free copy of my book, and as well as some of the downloads and thoughts and tools that I'm sharing with you today. Now, this is important, and for anybody that's been in any of our webinars before or any of my programs, you know that we have some rules, and they're a little different than the webinar rules that you may be used to. The rules are our house rules, and here's what they are. The first is no bystanders. And today we are actually doing coaching. So we don't want people just sitting still. If you've got an idea, if you've got something you want to share, I'd like you to raise your hand, drop it in the chat, and yes, we want you to even share your ideas. So sharing is caring, as I used to say to my young children who are not young anymore. But I do care about you, and I want you to share. The other thing I want you to do is take your phones and put it into airplane mode. I want you to just turn it off, because I want you to know that these things here are weapons of mass distraction. So we want you to focus. Also want you to be open. You may have been given instructions in the past, some tips, some techniques on how to deliver something, how to present something, how to craft a PowerPoint. I'd like you to take the time right now and take those preconceived notions and park them. We're going to ask you to unlearn. Be bold. Be bold. You can't offer new ideas and new concepts without putting yourself out there. And as I found out, we also can't really be bold unless we're willing to have some fun. So, can I just see a show of hands or a little bit in the chat? Who's ready to have some fun with all of us today and support the people? Great, Carl. Thanks for the thumbs up. Thank you, Adam. Crystal, me, awesome. Peter, fantastic. Also, while we're just getting started, can we also put in, where is everybody from? Type in your city, where you're zooming in from. Sydney, awesome. Carl, you need to be clear, is that Sydney, Nova Scotia, or Sydney, Australia? We've got people from Edmonton, Mississauga, Argentina, India.
That's
beautiful
amazing.
Barrie, amazing, in Burlington. Mr. Brijak, my old hockey mate, we used to play on the team together. Nice to see you in Toronto. We've got folks from Ireland, Huntsville, Alabama. Fantastic. Well, welcome everybody. I want to start by,
You're gonna ask them to turn
first of
their
all,
cam-
this doesn't look right here. We're going to fix that. I'm going to come back to that right there.
Are we
Something
gonna,
didn't.
sorry, are we going to ask them to turn the cameras on? Or?
Oh yeah, please put your cameras on. I'd like to see you. That way we can connect. Thanks for the reminder.
Absolutely. Live webinar.
Let's
We'd love to see
Thank you,
you.
Michael. I appreciate it. Abhay, good to see you. Oh, Marty, no problem. You're in Chicago with no camera. It's nice to see you again. And I know you've been busy. You had your own webinar last night. Congratulations on that. Carl, thanks for turning yours on. If you can't understood, we understand there's a reason. But if you have a question as we go along and we ask for questions, take yourself off mute. Let's see you. Let's hear you. Looking forward to diving in. Now, let me start by just walking you through some core principles that we're going to be looking at today as we go through the coaching and hot seat coaching with our special guests. So the first principle that I want to share with you is that we need to simplify. When we are looking at sharing complex information, no matter what, we need to figure out a way to break it down to its component parts. Now, by the way, these principles that I'm sharing with you, and I've said this before, they're not rocket science, but they can help a rocket scientist communicate their complex work. So I'm going to ask you to bear with me as I go through these principles. So simplify, and simplify using structure. We're going to look at some structure in just a minute. Then we transform. Once we've got the simplify structure down, we transform using storytelling, using language, and a whole slew of other techniques, some of them of which we'll be talking about in just a moment. The third is perform, which is a performance mindset, and Av is going to dive into that in just a little bit. But what happens when we simplify, we transform, and we perform is we create access to information that was previously inaccessible. We generate a deeper level of understanding, especially once we've transformed the content using story. And then when we perform, we create a deeper connection. A deeper connection. Does that make sense? Okay, I just did that purposefully because I wanted to see how many of you I was connecting with virtually via Zoom, and I saw all of you nodding your heads, or not all of you, but most of you nodding your heads. Now, there's an interesting little typo here, but what happens in the middle here is we can create impact. Create impact. And that's results. It's results in your business, in your community, in your industry, in your home, if you embrace these core principles. Now, the first thing that we need to do is change our mindset. I asked you to be bold right off the top. It's one of our house rules. Does anyone ever feel like they're being judged when they need to present virtually or in person? Let me see a show of hands or a yes or a no in the chat.
When I'm talking to my wife, I'm presenting to my wife, I'm always being judged. Does that count?
Yes, Michael is saying no. The majority of people feel that they are being judged, and that feel this judge that is looking down on them is actually coming from two places. One is from the audience. They feel that somebody is actually sitting there measuring whether or not they're being successful or they're being truthful even. The second judge lives up here, right? And we need to change that mindset from being a judge to a pilot. The pilot, I just flew back from Abu Dhabi on Sunday. I didn't get into my seat. I didn't fold my arms and kind of go, I really wonder if this pilot knows what they're doing, right? We don't. We assume that they do know what they're doing. And they take us up, they welcome us on their plane, they take us up on a journey, and they bring us down. That's what we need to do, and that's what I do. When I started today, I'm thinking, I'm going to take these folks with Av on a learning journey. So, we need to get rid of the judge and embrace the pilot concept and the pilot mentality, because presentations, communication of any kind is an act of generosity. It's very generous of us to take our time and to share it with anybody. Now, your ideas that you're sharing, your communications can actually change the world. Everything that you do, every idea you have is important. It's not just for those on the TED stage. It's not just for Singularity U speakers. It's for people just like yourself. Maybe there's TED and Singularity U speakers who are in this audience, but what I'll say is this is a really important message for you to embrace. Your ideas, your knowledge can change the world. Let's start with the first principle, and I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. We've about 10 more minutes or so. I just want to make sure I'm not going too fast, too slow. 10?
Yeah,
10
we've
more
got
minutes?
about 10 more minutes before we jump into the hot seat.
Okay, 10 more minutes. Okay. The first principle is simplify, and as I already said, we simplify using structure. And this structure is going to help us create a real connection, and because we're going to get very, very clear. This is called the communication canvas. It's a canvas that I've developed over the years with TED speakers, with Singularity U, as well as scientists and academics. And I continually refine it. But what you'll see is this structure allows you to get very, very clear on your messaging very quickly. Let me just walk you through some of the process here. The first step when you're developing a canvas is that you get clear on your purpose. In the same way you need to understand what your thesis is when you're developing a paper or some sort of document, we need to get clear on your purpose. You need to get clear on the what, the how, and the why. And you need to also be clear on what is your intended takeaway. Then we move into essential message 1, support, which is data, facts, information that help drive home that status. Yes, Carl just asked a question, will these collaterals be shared? These are the handouts that you can get, and I'll share that link again at the very end. We then move into what we call the most important point. The most important point is a key takeaway. I call it the most important point because you've literally just shared it here. You've literally just shared your most important point. And then you say it again. For those of you in the communication space, you may be familiar with the saying, tell them again, and then tell them what we told them. So this is a great example of telling them again. Now we continue on. We continue on building essential messages, support, most important points. And once we've done this work, because we've got the purpose, the essential message links to that purpose, we can now think of what is our lean in or our commanding opening. What is the story, and yes, I use that very purposefully, that is going to help engage the audience. And then finally, and only then, can we move into our close. I lost it. There we go. There we go. So this communication canvas gives you everything you need in order to get clear. The most important part of it, though, is this structure within the structure, which is your 3-step purpose practice. And I'm not going to actually go through this in detail now because we're likely going to do it with one of the folks that we're going to be coaching. We'll look at this practice together. But that is the first principle. Principle 1, simplify, and it can be done by the use of structure. Now you may have a really great structure that you use already. That's great. I should say to you, use it. And use it as a practice every single time you are getting ready for a presentation or a pitch or any important communication. Second principle is transform. The principle of transformation is all about embracing storytelling techniques because storytelling translates the complex information, but it also transforms the listener. Now, I'm not going to share all my insights on the neuroscience of storytelling, but what I am going to ask you is how many people, well, actually let me ask, quickly type into the chat, how much information do you think is retained, what percentage is retained when shared as a story? Just type it in, let's see who gets the closest guess. 90%, 50%, 80%, 90, 70 to 65, all right. Look, I'm going to give Priyanka, if I said that correctly, a gold star because it's 60 to 70% of information is retained when it's shared as a story, which means that when we just recite information, content, we're missing the opportunity because it has a tremendous impact on the human brain. For example, if I just give information, only 2 areas, Wernicke's area and Broca's area, are activated. But if I share a story, there are 7 areas of the brain. 7 areas of the brain that are activated. Things like the sensory cortex that perceives texture through touch. There's serotonin is released that helps people focus and pay more attention, which is, I think, what we all want. So there's a lot that can happen when we tell a story. And one of the things that, again, we will cover today, given time, is we will look at the story spine. This story spine is not something I've created. It's something that many companies, including Pixar, has embraced to ensure that the products that they're releasing have tremendous stories. And they're strong. It gives you, they use it to kick the tires of the script before it goes into production. And so we will look at the story spine as we go through. So, the second principle is transform. All content can be engaging if you embrace storytelling techniques. I'm going to hand it over to my good friend Av, to talk about principle number 3, perform. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. So what's really interesting is when you use the aspects of performance into your everyday meetings, you also go ahead and achieve a pretty amazing transformation. So number 1, people always ask me, well, marketing gives me a great deck. Okay, do you realize that your deck is only 7% of the value of any particular meeting? As an example, people think that there's only 2 options when they get into a remote meeting. One is they go full screen with that deck and then they talk. Well, that becomes a huge problem because very quickly people disconnect with the individual speaking and I become a floating voice. That has very little value. Whereas other people come in and say, I actually can go, I don't need a deck at all, I just talk. Well, this is also a problem because in a remote meeting environment, your brain actually knows that you're seeing a fake person on TV, not a real individual. As an example, if you put a TV screen in front of a baby versus a live parent, who do you think even a newborn baby is going to gravitate towards? You're going to go ahead and suppress this ability for people to connect with each other. So you have to be able to use your deck as a visual aid. That's really critical. The second thing that's actually important from a performance point of view is your executive presence. Being able to stand up in front of my audience in order to be able to point and highlight. You know, what happens is memories are not created, retention of information just not is created because you're paying attention. Sometimes, as you know, the smell of a particular type of coffee might take you back to a meeting. The feeling of a texture on your finger because you flipped a page, or the smell of that book that you opened up, or maybe your grandmother was baking cookies, like all sorts of things trigger memories because memories are very complex. So your executive presence actually is over 80% of the value of your meeting. So you as an individual have to stand out, and that's one of the major reasons we asked you to turn on cameras, because you got to get used to actually having that camera and the executive presence. Now, the other thing that also happens is the way we present data. People tend to share massive amounts of data, and your eye is going all over the place. I could be talking over here, but you're reading over there. You could be looking at this while I'm actually trying to describe this. There's no ability to go ahead and divert or control your attention. Now, Nick talked about me wanting to be a pilot. I actually want to be a pilot to point out or divert your attention or focus your attention. The ability for me to go ahead and control your focus and tell you that this is important. And this is called reinforcement learning. What happens is when I write something, you watch me write, at the same time you listen to my words, then you see those words, you read them, and all of these type of reinforcements tell your brain that this is actually an important piece of information. So anytime you're actually presenting a message and you want to draw attention to something, how many people here, as soon as I start inking, does your eye immediately go there? Right? So the ability for me to disconnect you from what's going on in your environment right now, your brain is going, okay, let me look at that phone, let me look at this. Something else happened in my room. I got an email notification. Well, I have to bring you back to message. So the more I can enhance my executive presence, the more I use technology to go ahead and help visualize and direct your attention, the greater you can go ahead and have an impact. That comes back to Nick's concept of impact. Now, what I'm doing here today, just so you're all aware, is hopefully, do you feel like you stepped into our boardroom where Nick and me are standing in front of you, right? So we're changing the paradigm. You do not have to wear tens of thousands of dollars of goofy looking headsets in order to think that this is the metaverse. Metaverse is a lot more complex structure where people just feel they're more connected with each other. People want to talk to people. So here we have an interactive whiteboard where we are demonstrating the product. I have an audience monitor right in front of me, and there's a camera and lights. And Nick actually has his own camera there as well. So the ability to bring all of this information together in a seamless technology platform is critical. And by the way, I can actually show you how to do this at your desk using your existing laptop with zero investment dollars. You could take a monitor, put your audience over here, and you run our app right here, and using $15 to $20 worth of hardware like a Wacom tablet and things like that, I can show you how we can transform your presentations to go ahead and have impact. So the next thing right now is we're going to go ahead and jump in. Any other comments right now?
No, not at all. No.
So first of all, any questions so far before we jump into the hot seat? I'm seeing there's some fair amount of lag, 20 to 30 milliseconds. Anybody else having that problem? Coming in smooth? Awesome. So that's part of the experience, is you have to make sure that your structure is set up. So anybody have questions? We jumped through hours worth of content. By the way, me and Nick hold webinars and all of this type of concepts, one-on-one workshops. We do this all the time. We're giving you a taste of what we do with technology and the art of the performance. Any questions so far? Any comments so far before we jump into a live workshop?
Quiet group. Oh.
No problem. Okay, so first up, I see Sue right there. So Sue, we're going to jump into, you want to unmute yourself, and we're going to go jump in.
Hello.
You wanna...
Yeah, sure. Hey, Sue, we have 2 decks from you. The 3.
Oh, well, there's a video. One is a video.
Oh, okay, there it is. So
yeah,
we'll start
take
with
that
this.
video. Yeah, take that deck.
Okay.
Hold it down. Yeah.
There we go. All right, Sue, nice to see you again. We met at one of these webinars, and we chatted afterwards, so it's great to have you here. And I think we should all give Sue a big round of applause virtually, because she's putting herself out there. She's being bold. So let's give her. Awesome. I love the barking dog sound. Either it's a sound effect or real. I love it. That's fantastic. All right, so we're going to move from barking dogs to horses. And Sue's got a really interesting business. And Sue, what we're going to do is, in order to kind of get through a few people that we're going to work with, people we're going to coach today, I would like you to just spend a moment presenting the slide. I'll move it. Just say next slide. But just take a moment, and don't be offended when I interrupt you, because I want Av and I to give you a few minutes of coaching as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the from CHC Consulting, Sukar.
Thank you. So thank you for joining us today. I'm going to talk a little bit today about 3 broad categories of leadership styles. So next. So in this session, we're going to talk about very general categories and the pros and cons of each session. Next. So looking at this in a context, in business, there's a lot of different styles. Some people like to lead from out front, some people like to lead from behind, and some people like to lead from alongside. So we're just going to cover very, very briefly some of this information. Next. So a little bit about who we are. We work with organizations to reduce workplace stress and make teams more collaborative and more productive. We do that through some traditional stuff, formatting kind of like this, but our most impactful activities are when we bring teams out and work with horses, so that's the context for this reference to horses. So next.
Okay, I'm gonna pause you, Sue, if that's all right. I think just because there's a couple of other folks that we also want to be able to speak to, and there's a couple of things that come to mind immediately, and I'm sure you've got some thoughts.
Yes.
So I'm gonna go back now, and by the way, again, this is very brave of you, coming in front of a group of people. So thank you, and we're going to go back to your first initial. Slide. So first of all, let's just talk about the slides, because we're going to look at that I would fit into a kind of almost on this part of the performance principle. So this is a really colorful, pretty slide. Like I saw it, and I'm not a horsey person. Don't hold that against me, Sue. But I was drawn to this. It was colorful. I was like, and I kind of was like, horses in leadership. Interesting. It made me ask some questions, right? So that's good. What I call that traveling, meaning you're immediately in either unconsciously or consciously getting the audience to travel somewhere. Now it's not so far that it's distracting me. It's just getting me going. I wonder. And your role as a presenter, and this is really important when we're dealing with technology as well, is our job is not to use the technology or to put it on PowerPoint. It's to take people on a curiosity journey. And so that's, thanks Marty, I hope to stay in touch and see you again soon. So that's my first thing. Do you want,
no, that's great.
Okay, you'll jump in, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. The second thing is, here's my first critique, if you will, or constructive criticism, let's just put it that way. This is and this is all subjective, right? This is first thing I'm going to talk about is design. It's a green on green, which is not too bad. It kind of pops a little bit, but certainly compare the vibrancy of that to that. It brings it. Whoops.
Hold it down.
There we go. Thanks, Av. It brings it. It's a little quiet, but the most important thing is that you start by telling us this. I don't know if I need to see a slide. You can talk to me about it over here.
I was going to say the same thing, because Sue, you rarely want to go ahead and repeat something that's exactly on the slide. Now, don't get me wrong, there's two slides. There's a slide that you give away, and there's a slide that you talk to. And when you're giving this away to someone, absolutely have that information. But on the talk to, I would eliminate that.
The next thing that happened is you then jumped into this slide, which you've got some stock image of the super business person, and then you've got this idea of context, and I like this. This is the most important thing that you're going to talk about, leading from the front, leading from behind, and leading alongside. So yet you've got different leadership styles are needed for, there's two different kind of big statements here, and then a photo. I am, my initial feedback is simplify this as much as possible. Like, you don't need context. You just need that. Different leadership styles. And these three things. That's all you need, because the rest you're going to speak to. Now here's the, I got two more things that come to mind, and again, you're going to jump in. You say, I'm going to share this with you, this is what we're going to look at, and then you paused and went back to, let me tell you a little bit about who we are. And so from a flow perspective, remember, when you're looking at, and I think I can do this here, I'm just going to bring this down. Remember, when you're looking at a flow of a presentation, we've got our opening, or our lean in, we've got our purpose, I can't spell right now, purpose, and then we've got our essential message. 1, 2, and 3. And we also have our support, right? I'm just reminding you of that structure. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. What you kind of did is you just started speaking here. And I'm missing this opening. I'm missing some story that's going to engage.
And that horse with the picture is a great opportunity for open. That's a great photograph. That's a great image. It's dynamic. There's an awesome open that could really be a story. I want to just tell you how I got into horses. And you know, 20 years ago I was doing X, Y, and Z. This is where my love for horses came in, and this is how I tied leadership into it. Would that be an example of an open? I'm just made something up here.
Yeah,
Sue.
well, in fact, because I had the chance to meet with Sue at one point a few weeks ago, I know that she would actually have a story to share about somebody who did one of her leadership programs and had a breakthrough of leadership. Now, I'm assuming that you have a story about different leadership styles leading from the front, behind, and from the side. That one of those experiences of the individual, something that happened during your program with one of the horses, I think you even told me somebody got very emotional, there was a breakthrough, right? So this is something that you want people to be listening to right away. But most importantly, that opening must connect with your purpose. What's your purpose? I think there was one more slide that you started speaking to. No, we didn't get to that. So what I'd like to do, thank you. What I'd like to do is, out of respect for the other folks.
Let me do a quick thing on the text.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm actually going to make it so it's a little easier for you to pin. 1 second. Content time. We'll make it a little easier. There we go. So Sue, on that note, let's also talk about the performance aspect as to what you can do to go ahead and punch it up. So if I was going to do this presentation, now coming back to what Nick said, I'd start with a great story. We have an opportunity to go ahead and introduce yourself. Your image actually has a lot of impact. And what I want to do is, let's say we got rid of that slide. So what's the most important essential message that you have on this slide? So let's just assume you got rid of that. We got rid of all of that. So what's the reinforcement that you need to do on this slide? If there's only one piece of information you want me to take away, what would that be on the slide?
Different leadership styles. So there's different ways leaders lead.
Okay, so how about this? If I now did this, I said, okay, I want you to understand that there's different leadership styles right there. Some people lead from the front, and let's talk about an example or two. Some people lead from behind. So this is the general that's out there fighting with the troops. This is the general that's behind. And some people are right there from the side. Now, when I underlined and impacted those statements, did your eye go back to seeing, did that reinforce? So if I came into this slide, number one, I just talked to you, but if I go, there are multiple leadership styles. The ones I focus on is the front. Here's an example of the one behind, and here's the one that's on the side. Okay, did that make an impact for everyone on the call? As soon as I do this, where I point and underline, does it reinforce the ability, right? Absolutely. And same thing, what you want to do is you can get rid of half of these words because you are there presenting, and I want Sue right here on camera to have a value. So remember, you're executive president. So you're going to come in and say, okay, let me tell you, you have complete sentences in here. You don't have to. You can cut the words down, and immediately you can come in and say, this is the most important. That's a resilience to stress. We help you with this. What are the pros and cons? So you almost have to use the deck as a visual aid. So with the right technology, remove information, use the deck as a visual aid, which transforms the way that you are going to go perform, and that changes the way that people engage. I'd love to hear everyone's comments right now. Any questions or comments as to what we are suggesting over here? Maybe you agree, maybe you don't. Okay, Joe, thank you. The way I see it, Nick Ab, you're effectively making Sue aware of what her audience is likely thinking, yet she'd never know, as she uses this presentation to connect with. Absolutely. Thanks for volunteering, Sue. And yeah, keep it simple, Peter. Absolutely, there's no question about it, because we tend to get rabbit-holed in and into our own information. I remember a coach a long time ago, this is something that was invaluable for me. He goes, Ab, every time you go to a presentation, think of it this way. You come in and you start tapping a song. You're like, okay, come on, you all know what I'm tapping about. You know, how can you not see it? I can hear that song completely in my head. You have no clue what I'm doing, right? So you actually have to go ahead and kind of drill it way down into something simple and understand what the reinforcement is and use the tools to reinforce that. Absolutely, death by PowerPoint. So we're going to jump on to the next. Sue, do you have any questions or comments right now? Was that helpful for you?
That was incredibly helpful. Thank you, and I appreciate everybody chiming in with their comments as well. That's really helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
My notes for redoing it. Thank you.
Awesome. And then we'll reach out to you and help you out as you need, Sue.
Daryl had a question.
Yes, Daryl, go for it.
Yes. If you don't have this technology, do you think PowerPoint builds could be a good substitute?
If we don't have this technology, PowerPoint builds. What does the PowerPoint build mean?
I think I know what you're getting at, Daryl. That's animations that build your slides at a time, and it's here's my take on it. It's a half measure. If you need to build your PowerPoint, and for example, my communication canvas, I usually present it with builds in animations when I'm not on the suite here. And that's helpful because it's a flow, and a step-by-step process. But in terms of bullets and information and charts, you shouldn't need it. There are times when you need to show a process, and that's helpful. But even then, if you are using something like Reactiv, or you're using your mouse to highlight, you can show the direction that you want everyone to go.
Right. But absolutely, and that's why we built the tool out of the ground in order to help every presenter. There's only so much you're going to be able to do with it. I get that. Now, also the problem with animations are they can get very distracting really quickly, and there's a lot of advantages to not having that. So we're jumping into our next hot seat victim here. Michael, are you there, buddy? Awesome. Come on in, Michael.
All right. Thank you.
I'm here, yeah.
Where are you, Michael?
I was wondering if you'd permit me to actually share my screen and I could try to run the whole thing and see if my practice has paid off at all.
Oh, awesome. Let's do that.
Yeah,
So
I'll let you drive.
let's go ahead and... Was I not sharing my screen till now? Yeah.
So I can just...
Okay, go for it.
hit the
Yeah,
share screen?
go for it.
Okay, here we go.
And so just Michael, just so you know, once you've started to share, we may interrupt you in just a moment, okay? After you've
Yeah,
Okay, go for it.
please do. I'll leave lots of gaps. Okay,
Oh,
so...
Michael's already in Reactiv there. There you go. He's cheating.
I'm messing
There you
around. I've got my cell phone actually balanced on a Tim Hortons coffee cup. So if someone sneezes in the room, I'm going to fall to the floor. Anyways.
Awesome.
So-
Okay.
Okay, so we played around a little bit with what I've done here in this case is I've chosen devices and I've used the screen sharing or screen mirroring on my cell phone so I could throw this image up of me talking while I'm looking at my laptop. I didn't want to use the camera on my laptop because the laptop's usually down on a desk and I'm looking down at it. And there's something about when you're not looking straight ahead that just bothers me. Or when you're looking up, it's nicest if you can look eye to eye and directly to your customers or your audience. So then I'm going to bring up I'm going to go to my media tab and I'm going to take my little presentation, drag it up here. Say that again?
Why do we have posters if nobody gonna use them? Like a good name.
Oh. Okay, someone's watching TV, that's okay. I'll just speak above it. So I'm here in the corner. I'm gonna make myself just a little bit smaller, but you can still see me. Tell me if the size balance is okay.
Look, perfect. This is a great balance.
Okay. All right, so what I'm gonna talk about today is my unique role. Someone might want to mute their TV. It looks like they're watching the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Okay, there we go. Anyways, so I've got a unique role at Ricoh. I'm in technology sales, and it has to do mostly with helping clients manage their information. So document management is kind of a word that's been thrown around quite a bit, but we're going to talk about my specific role in office services. So it's a fairly large portfolio. Now, I think I want to mark this up a little bit, but it's just the wrong size to be able to do that. So I'm going to grab a pen, and we're going to focus on Okay, I don't know why I can't write on this. Maybe that's something we can talk about after. Anyways, my focus is going to be on the EWS side down, which is electronic workflow services. And really, there is an information problem. Why is there an information problem? Well, here you can kind of summarize it. According to IDC, humanity is going to generate 40 zettabytes of information by 2020. So that's 2 years ago already. 40 zettabytes. How much is a zettabyte? Well, let's talk about that for a second. A zettabyte is 1 trillion gigabytes. A gigabyte used to be a lot. I remember when a megabyte was a lot, but now we're talking about gigabytes and 1 trillion of them. So how much is 1 trillion? Let's give that number some scope, some scale, some point of reference. Okay, how many years would 1 trillion seconds be? Well, according to Google, my friend, it's about 32,000 years is 1 trillion seconds. So we're talking about enormous amounts of data. And the majority of it is in places where it's unusable. Geez, I wish I could draw on this.
Yeah, so Michael, hold down the control on your keyboard and then your mouse. Are you using the touchscreen or a mouse? We'll work with you on the technology side of things.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah.
And then hold down Shift and then you get to erase.
Gotcha. Well, let's go to cameras. I want to get myself back up on the screen.
Yeah, you gotta stop your camera and zoom.
Then I won't do that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll work with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna let's pause that for now.
Yeah, let's actually get back to here and then give him some feedback. Yeah, is that okay, Michael?
Sure, you bet.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, there we go. We're back. Awesome. No, that's an awesome attempt. That really, thank you for that. And we're gonna actually now show you. Go for it. You start.
Yeah. So I've got just a couple of things. First of all, let's give Michael a round of applause. And Michael, the question I have is actually a performance one to start with, not about the content. It sounds like there's background noise. Is that true, or is that coming from somewhere else? Yeah, it's from you. Yeah, you just muted, so we can't hear you now.
Our boardroom here, it sounds like we're in a wind tunnel or standing behind that big plane that takes off in that Caribbean town.
Yeah, okay.
And blown in the ocean.
So I wanted, so there's one quick thing, because you've got a great presentation, you're starting to use different cameras, you're kind of more evolved than most people, to be honest, from a presentation perspective. I don't know you personally. But the reality is that sound can be changed with a microphone or a good headset.
Sounds like there's something going on with his fan in the boardroom, but yes, that's a serious problem.
Yeah, it's very distracting. In fact, I'm having a hard time speaking with it over. It's incredible. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is I thought you got some pretty clear slides. This is a low quality and your image. So you might have grabbed it from somewhere else. So I would make sure that when you share an image, because the reality is, even I don't know what it looks like on everybody's screen, but just looking at this, like it's low res. You can see it's the low resolution, so it's grainy. If you don't need to talk about these things, then just list these ones. Or I think you said from EWS down. I would just keep it simple, as somebody already said in the chat. And then finally, let's talk about this stuff, which is when I was going to start interrupting you, but you know why I didn't? I was really interested.
Yes.
It was you generated curiosity within me, with Av, with a whole bunch of folks. Not only that, I started to learn stuff. I'm like, zettabytes? What the heck's a zettabyte? And then you answered the question for me. It's 1 trillion gigabytes. So awesome work in terms of generating interest. And this, just to, let me do that again. This, in my opinion, was where you finally, thanks for the coaching, is where, when we're looking at that lean in, this is where you were doing a great lean in. But you started a little bit earlier talking about the setup for it. And I'm not sure if you need to do all that before you get to
Now,
this.
what if you talk about the setup after the lean in? What if you come in and say, why is there an information problem? Here's the zettabytes, this one. By the way, my name is Michael. You know, I'm with Rico. This is what I do. What if you just switch that around?
Exactly, exactly. So imagine you started with us, we've got an information, not why is there. There's we are facing an information problem. And in fact, in my TEDx talk, you can find it online, I start with this very idea. We are in a communication epidemic, is what I say. Because I'm not using the same idea of terabytes and zettabytes and etc. It's more about that we're inundated with technologies and don't know how to use them and don't know how to layer them effectively. So that is where I would say is change the order of your content. Anything else?
Yeah, I can jump in
Yeah,
here for a
yeah.
second. So, yeah, and by the way, awesome job in order to come in. Now, I know you were already looking for the pen, so we can give you a bit of coaching. So if you hold, you have a touchscreen, right, Michael, or were you using a?
Yeah, I got a touch screen and a mouse.
Okay, fair enough. So if you hold down the control button on your touch screen, on your keyboard, your touch will actually, become maybe my keyboard's not connected here. That's a separate problem. So your touch will actually become a pen, and then if you hold down Shift, it'll automatically become the eraser. So that will help you out a lot. Now, I know you're also streaming in through, ideally, instead of using your phone, I think it's much more reliable because your phone can easily go to sleep. If your phone goes to sleep, then the whole thing will, just set up a webcam on the side. I actually love, how many people agree? I love that angle where Michael, yeah, that's a fantastic angle. Like, that gives so much more gravitas than the laptop camera. And by the way, me and Nick were giving you a thumbs up because so many people don't realize how poor their camera placement is on the laptop. So good on you for understanding and realizing that. So if you just moved your camera up slightly, or you had a secondary camera on a stand, you would do an amazing job of actually looking over and interacting. So just buy yourself like one of those Amazon tripods and then put a camera on it. Like, these things are $20. Put it up and connect it through USB, and you'll never have a problem with that.
If I could just jump in, and
Yeah.
the one thing that you mentioned is that I don't like how I look when the camera is down. And what you're actually doing is, and I cover this in some of my courses, is you're lowering your physical status. When we want to present, we want to match the status of the people we're presenting to, or elevate it even. And so when you're starting virtually as a lower status individual, you're not putting your best foot forward, and you're not showing up the way you want to show up. So great insight on where you place your camera.
Any questions from you, Michael?
Yeah, can I finish the rest of the presentation and close for the order?
Well, we have the next individual, so right after that, we're going to go ahead and give you the close. Send us your information for sure. So, hey, Paul, how are you?
Do we have
Yeah.
do we have him on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, hey,
There you go.
Paul.
Hi.
Hey, nice to meet you. How are you?
Well, and you?
Good. So, Paul, whereabouts in the world are you?
In Cape Town.
Awesome. So thanks for joining us here. Paul, I'm gonna do what I did with Sue. I'm gonna let you tell me when to change the slide. We'll get you going for a few minutes, and then we'll give you some feedback, okay?
All right, cool.
All right, so
thank you.
ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Paul Paul R. There we go.
Well, thanks everybody. I appreciate it. It's so awesome to be here. I want to get started. So today we're going to be talking about money mindset. Money mindset being a very important component of financial literacy. And without further ado, let's let the journey begin. You're next. All right, just a little bit about me. I'm a financial empowerment coach. I help courageous individuals rewrite their money stories so that they can go after what they truly want. Okay, there we go.
Sorry, Paul. Go ahead.
So I'm also in recovery. I've got just celebrated 10 years last year in October. I'm a Christian. I was honored to be part of the Addiction Diaries, which was an anthology which was released in 2020. Just wonderful people writing their own stories about different parts about addiction and their own stories. It's a fantastic book. I encourage people to just get it. It's really raw stories from people that have lived addiction and are, more importantly, living recovery. And in terms of my own financial services experience, I've been a financial advisor for many years. I was a certified financial planner. I've been in the industry for quite some time. And most importantly, I'm a recovering perfectionist and an aspiring good enoughnist. So that's very important to me. And we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so here's the journey that I want to take you all on. The first thing is obviously money mindset, and that's very, very important. And we start with that first because it's really going to form the foundation of everything going forward. After that, I'm going to take you through building a solid foundation, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail in the next two sections where we're going to be spending and paying off debt, and then saving and investing. And that's the journey. It's 4 modules. It's going to be 4 awesome modules, 4 awesome experiences, and I'm so excited that you're all part of this journey.
Okay,
So,
I'm gonna pause you, Paul. Paul, well done. Let's give him a round of applause, everybody, because he's brave. And we're gonna pause there because we are. I want to make sure I give you some feedback, and Ad wants to give you some feedback as well. A couple of things to start with. So first of all. Is this?
There's a video there that I did
want to
not
make
see.
sure.
Video, but
Okay.
I couldn't play it. Yeah.
No, all good. So that's an interesting thing. You've got a video playing that while you're speaking, or you'll press play on it.
I'll press play on it. I'll let them see the video, and then we'll start and say, "Let the journey begin." So it sort of follows the video.
Okay,
Yeah.
and very quickly, what's the video?
It's just a sort of my logo coming out of it's sort of a transforming out of a vacuum.
So it's a logo. It's a logo
It's brand.
transformation.
It's your brand.
Logo and brand, yes.
Okay.
And then it says at the bottom, "Are you ready?"
Okay.
You know.
All right.
Yeah.
So remember, and I think I know where I was going. There's a time and a place for logos and animations, and when you're starting to present, it really isn't necessary. I think it's fine if while people are walking into the room or waiting on Zoom to have an animated logo to keep them as preoccupied as they can be during that waiting time, but it's not necessarily while you're presenting. You want them, let me just be clear, this is my star, and this is you. You're the star. We don't need anything else. So a couple of things about that. First of all, I think it's also very brave what you've shared in terms of your content. So I appreciate you sharing your candid your experience, and that is my first piece of feedback. You started by talking about your guide and your perspective and your history. Now, this is all really interesting. These are amazing credentials, by the way. But what's really interesting is you talk. This is what you do, but yet you're talking about this. Now we want to connect these two, right? There has to be a connection. And I know, like I shared with Sue, that there's a story here. And what you did is you created an anecdote about you are a recovering addict. And I said that correctly, just correct me if I'm wrong. 10 years, we celebrate that, and incredible. But yet, there's a reason why these two are linked, right? There's a reason, and there's a story, and in this, sometimes you have to get comfortable telling that story. I'm going to come right out and say all of this is important. Your brand is important, but starting with that story so that you can then, sorry guys, so that you can, let me get this back to here, thank you, get to this, which is great content and setting up your presentation. It's
so Nick, just a quick background context. So I'm going to be presenting to people in recovery from addiction, and it's going to be about financial coaching and building a financial foundation. So
Amazing.
my target audience is people in recovery. So I'm relating to them from that point of view, and I'm also bringing in my experience as a financial advisor.
So I would go into some details of that experience of being in recovery or being an addict, or and how it links. So you're going to be the ideal partner for them as they come out.
Yeah.
So what happens with that story is that it actually gives you that emotional connection. So again, coming down to it from a performance point of view and from a stage point of view, I agree with everything that he said. Now, what got me as the hook right here is immediately 10 years in recovery. That's a story, right? That's what interested me. That's what connected me. And if you start off and say, hey, I'm Paul, I'm just like you. I've actually suffered for X number of years. Here's my story. 10 years ago, I got out, and this is what I had to do to, and I realized that I had, very little in financial literacy. I knew very little like this. There was very little help for me to get myself started because everybody else treated me a certain way. And I realized that there's an opportunity to go ahead and help this way, and that's the connection. What does everybody think? Is that a way to go ahead and build immediate trust and immediate interest, right? Right? And Michael, it's the same thing, that story of the zettabytes and why you're the solutions expert. And same thing with Sue. What's the story behind the horses and how you got there? That's the hook that immediately comes in. And this to me is the secondary stuff after you build that trust. And then you immediately come in, you talk about the story mindset. Now what's interesting is, because it's a circle, I don't even notice what the modules are. My eye could be going in a completely different direction. You could be talking about saving and investing, and I could be talking about building a solid foundation. So the way that I would bring that back is, okay, we're gonna start our module right here because I gotta get you to the mindset, and I'm gonna show you how you're gonna build a solid foundation that'll start you off to pay off your loans, and you're gonna go ahead and get on top. So right now you're stuck because you don't know how to go ahead and connect these dots together, right? So suddenly when I make that be interactive, does that help everyone, follow along more?
Yeah.
What does that performance look like, right?
So I'm aware that we are at 2 minutes to
2 minutes
time,
to-
and so I'm gonna
Yes,
join. No, I can
absolutely.
join you up here
Yeah,
too,
come on in.
because I think it's good. It's a good time for us to finish up. And first of all, can we all give our three speakers a round of applause? Well done. Thank you very much, all three of you. Fantastic, and thank you for being brave to share. It's not easy to jump on and offer these insights. I want to ask everybody. Two questions, and I'm going to say them quickly, and then I'll repeat them. One, what's your key takeaway from today? And two, would you like to do this again and bring a presentation? Because it's something we're thinking of doing as an ongoing series. So the first thing is, what's your key takeaway? Just either come off mute and share, or drop it in. What's your big takeaway from today? What do you take away? Simplify. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you. And Peter with the keep it simple, stupid, or silly. That was what my grade school he said. I wasn't allowed to say stupid. Creating story. Thank you. Increase interactivity by highlighting talking points. Okay. Start with the draw. Excellent. Story. Excellent. Thank you. Is this something that you would like to learn from others as they get coached? Was this something that...
Would you recommend this to someone to join a webinar like this if we kept hosting them? Would you be willing to call a friend for us?
Awesome. Thanks, Chris and Crystal. There's a link that was dropped into the chat for Reactiv.
Yes.
Also, if you want if you'd like a free copy of the book, can we get the original deck up just with that last page on it so that we can share?
Yeah,
It's
I'll do that.
www.kindlerandcompany.com/reactive. Right here gives you a free copy of my book as well as some of the tools that we walked through today.
So we do give one-on-one assistance, and by the way, all of our software here, right here, what you're seeing is $30. Okay, that's all it is. And for $30, you get to a one-on-one coaching session with me where I can walk you through the technology side of things. But reality is Nick also has entire workshops dedicated to using technology and implementing them in your organization. So between myself and Nick, we can drive significant engagement in the way that you present online. So
Yeah, and the weird thing is we just bumped into each other yesterday on the street. This is all
that's
just
it.
fluke.
This is all,
So.
we just met each other.
Look, we're at time. I always enjoy doing this with you. Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, everybody. Graham's asked a question. Is it $30 per
Yeah,
seat?
so, I mean, it's $30 per individual, and then we have volume licensing as well. But as you can see, it's going to be very economical. Adam Timmons, if you want to go ahead and put out our contact information, that'd be really great as well.
And Crystal, do you mind, if you're still there, do you mind just dropping in our contact information at Kindler and Company for people who want to get introduced to our programs and workshops? And
well, there's going to be a thank you email that goes out to everyone. If you respond back to that, you can get slides, the recording of the video, we'll have everything there for you.
awesome.
Thanks
What a
so much.
wonderful way to spend an afternoon with us. Thank you so much for your time. And for those of you that I haven't seen for a while, that I maybe used to play hockey with, it's good to see you. And we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks again.